It sounds simple, but we know it's not. It requires courage and sometimes means we must speak up against strident voices. But that is what leaders do. Each of us has the opportunity to exercise that kind of leadership. Each of us can contribute to the building of that new road. Every one of you here is a builder, and we are building the future, one interaction, one hiring decision, one corporate community, one community of leaders like this one at a time. It is undeniable, something new has been born in our nation. We have to nurture it and support it in order to keep that road developing in the direction we want it to go. Thank you for all that you have done and will do to keep this construction project going. I appreciate your time and your attention. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tatum. Dr. Tatum is going to take about 10 minutes of questions and answers. If you'll raise your hand, Dr. Tatum will recognize you. Fred Johnson will come to you with the microphone. Please be brief. We only have a few minutes, but thank you very much.
The floor is open. Yes.
Morning.
Good morning.
I think it pains me to ask this question, but I'm wondering how many people here are bothered by the fact that we're holding this very important conference on the campus of an institution that has only recently reaffirmed its official policy of deeply painful discrimination against gay people, and which has maintained for many years an acknowledged practice of religious discrimination in its hiring for tenure-track positions. And I'm wondering, as an advocate for reducing racial discrimination, reducing and ultimately ending it, do you feel that the struggle against discrimination based on sexual orientation or based on religion is part of the same struggle, or is it a separate struggle to be carried on at a separate time or by separate people? Basically, do you feel that an institution can seriously combat one form of discrimination while openly accepting and acknowledging another form of discrimination?
Well, let me begin by saying that the isms operate in very similar ways. You know, whether you're talking about racism, sexism, classism, heterosexism, ageism, anti-Semitism, you name your ism, it operates in a similar way, in the sense that we are exposed to misinformation about the other, whoever that other is, however that's been defined. We absorb that information. Typically, there's, you know, if you look at domination and subordination, dominant groups, subordinate groups, the history of those isms and how they operate, as I like to say, any one of them can kill you. And the reality is, and so all are harmful. It is often the case that people start with one, and as their consciousness around the issue of one develops, they tend to move to others. So to answer your question, is it important to work on all of them? I would absolutely agree it is important to work on all of them. Is it necessary sometimes to focus on one at a time? I wouldn't say that you can't, you know, we can't multitask. We all know that multitasking is possible, and we all do it. But I think sometimes it is important to focus. So, for example, if we are having a workshop, and I used to do workshops like this on many occasions before I became a president and had less time to do them, unlearning racism workshops. And in those unlearning racism workshops, we would say, today our focus is going to be on racism. That's not to say that other isms are not relevant or important, and we all represent multiple identities. And so we bring all of those identities to the conversation. When I talk about issues of race, I can't leave out the fact that I'm female and that my view of understanding of race and how it operates in my life is mediated by the fact that I'm female. And targeted as a woman and also as a person of color. But I also have to acknowledge my privilege and where my privilege comes from as a person who defines herself as heterosexual, or defines herself as someone rooted in the Christian tradition, or defines herself as having grown up in a middle-class family. And to the extent that we at the same time can hold those multiple identities and look at the places where we have privilege and how we use that, and the places where we've been targeted and what it means to be an ally, deepening our capacity in one area usually means that we will get better in the other areas because the learning does transfer. Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Just a couple comments. To comment here about the location. This takes me back to my days at Oberlin College in the early 70s as a student. I feel like I'm in Finney Chapel. We used to have these conversations 40 years ago. And so when I graduated from there and went on with my own life, I thought, well, maybe we can make some change, and we're still trying to do that. I could also take you to Atlanta. Do you know Eastlake, the Drew little school there? 15 years ago, I was able to be involved in that. I've thought about moving back there myself, just haven't done that for some other reasons. My hope is, not for you, but for this audience, that once again we take this moment and understand what we can be doing. If I go back to the Fiesta program, the first weekend of Tulip Time, still the Fiesta program, if we had that photo, I wouldn't have to look for my face because it would stand out being tall and white in that group. But to get involved in those things, I'm at Boys and Girls Club 15 hours a week as a volunteer right now. And my gray wisdom here in my chin is not about gray wisdom. It's trying to be with those young kids more in their life. And most of the kids, Latino and Black, have men in their lives with a little bit of facial hair. So to do these kinds of things is what we all have to start doing much, much more of here in Christian conservative Holland, Michigan, that is as segregated in portions as most cities in America today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.